Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. We have Nirupa with us today, and we're going to dive right in so you get to know all that she does through the conversation that we have. Nirupa is very unique for this show because I've known her in many different avatars. She was first met her through Raghava as a friend, then she was at Inc. as an amazing writer, then again as a friend, and then like she applied for an Inc. fellowship that I didn't know about. And we had a whole new staff. They didn't know her. So I had like this highly recommended person that my whole team brought as an Inc. fellow. And I was like, I know her. And so she's been an Inc. fellow and now she's an amazing artist. So I've got to know her in many, many different avatars. And the current avatar that she's most known for today is she's that Nirupa, you're that rare combination of an intersection of art and science and storytelling and crazy treks and hikes and Western Ghats, so many things. So it is very, I have to say, this is part of the series that we are doing to interview 49 women. And why 49 women? Because 49.6% of the world is women. So we thought we should talk to 49 women from different disciplines, either of Indian origin. And so you're one of the people we are talking to, because you have, I don't think we have interviewed anyone with your career so far. So you're a botanical artist. I think, again, that's a confinement of words, but you do some of the most beautiful art about the natural life around us. And you published books and you continue to do amazing work, which I didn't know this side of you at all when I first met you. And so let's start with, first of all, when did you decide you wanted to be this kind of an artist? And I know you had probably an early influence of your great uncle, who was a botanist. So tell us about him. But tell me, for you, um, when did you know you sing, you write? There are so many other things I know about you, but this is something new I discovered much later. So were you always some drew, or is this something you discovered later?
One part of my bio, one part of my connection with ink that you missed out was that I'm also currently, I am also married to an ink fellow. Uh,
I know I didn't want to say that because I wanted you to say it.
yeah, so we met
Yeah.
at
So
ink.
she's also an unusual combination of being leading the Ink Fellow. She's an Ink Fellow coordinator, married to an Ink Fellow, also an Ink Fellow. So
Yeah, I
it's
don't
very
think anyone
rare.
can do that.
Now we just have to wait for Bodhi to grow up and
Yeah.
join the crowd. Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I guess, I mean, differences in terms of how I got to where I was, but I think the final spark that made me go down this career path was being at Inc., seeing a lot of people following their passions. And
yeah.
I had a sense of what my passions were at that point, and that definitely lit the spark, seeing other people go for it, whether they had formal education in it or not, and making a career for themselves, even where that career pathway didn't exist in a very obvious form. So that was definitely it. And in terms of how I chose to go down botanical art specifically, I didn't really know about it as a genre of art. I just like to draw as a hobby, as from childhood. I continued on with it and probably just didn't stop the way that most other adults end up doing.
Yeah.
And Alok, my husband, who I had just started dating at that time, he saw all of my drawings from the time I was a kid, and he noticed that I was constantly painting plants. And he suggested that I focus on that. And I said, that's not a thing. I can't just paint plants. And he researched it and said, there is a career you can you can be a botanical artist. And that's actually how I started out.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about, for our audience, about what is botanical art?
So it's a broad term. There's so many things that fall into that bucket. Um, I think one of the most common images that might come to our heads when we think about it is, a plant against a white background, usually with all the different parts of the plant in cross section, so which enables you
Correct.
to identify that species.
Mhm.
So that is a very specifically for scientific purposes. And nowadays, it's also taken on an aesthetic angle where people like to have that kind of artwork in their homes. Um, so that's a very actually technical form of botanical art. And then you could also have
Sorry.
what I do, which isn't just botanical plates in that manner, but it's more painting plants in a way that's accurate, but doesn't necessarily have all of like a complete information which would enable you to identify that specific species, down to the stamens and anthers and so on. And instead, it's an accurate representation of that plant, but not necessarily a scientific plate. And it could be used more for storytelling or science communication and so on.
Yeah, I think it's like for all of us, the only botanical art we know, like when you study biology, you have to draw a plant, as you're saying, you have to say, this is the stem, this is the leaf, whatever, you do. That's our idea of
Yeah.
botany. But I think what I've learned looking at your books, etc., is like it's a art, it's a piece of art, that it's the colors you choose, or not you choose, those are the colors of the plant, but the way you choose to represent it, etc., and the intricacy, how intricate they are. And one of the things we forget is how many thousands of species of plants we are surrounded by. So tell us a little bit about, and the thing that's amazing for me is you're not trained as a botanist, nor are you trained as an artist,
Yeah.
and you're a sociology major, and you're a writer. That's your first identity, is a writer. And so once you said, okay, I like drawing plants, from that to publishing a book about the plants in Western Ghats is a journey, and not that many years. I mean, you did it very quickly. So tell me, once you discover this is what you want to do, how did you go about it?
Yeah, so it all happened around the time just after I had graduated from college. I had had this idea in mind for a book quite early on. Actually, when I was in college, I would intern at Bloomsbury Publishers in London, and in the
Okay.
children's department. So this is the same department that publishes Harry Potter and all of that.
Okay.
And they had the series of books on plants for and insects and butterflies and all kinds of things for little children, and all based in England. And I loved those books, and I just sort of regretted that we didn't have something similar like that for Indian kids. So I had
Mm.
wanted to create something like that specifically in South India because that's where I grew up along the Western Ghats. Um, and so I actually came at it backwards. I had the idea to create this book, and then I said, okay, well, I need to illustrate this book. And so I should probably learn how to illustrate plants in order to make this book. And
Uh-huh.
so, yeah, so I worked backwards from there. Um, and yeah, I think I just learned on the job actually. That the
Mm.
first book that I published was the first book that I had ever
You
worked on.
illustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about your childhood. You said ever since you're a kid, you drew. Tell me a little bit about how were you raised? I mean, you have a sibling and you all sing together, and like you're a very tight-knit family. So tell me a little bit about your family. What was your upbringing like? And um, just tell me about that a little bit. And what
Uh,
what influence did your parents have on who you are today? What aspects of it? What did they teach you that was really, really strong that probably you're doing now?
So I'm the youngest of three sisters. And we actually, no one in my family draws professionally. Then I don't have any artists in my family, but we're all creative in different ways. I think music was a much stronger influence than art was. But I think the way that we were brought up was, in those days we didn't have many toys or um, any other sort of ways to distract our kids. And
Mhm.
anything that we wanted, we had to make. That was just the way my mother approached things. So if we went out and we, tasted some cookie that we liked, instead of buying it again, she would just say, okay, let's figure out how to make it. And so we would
Mhm.
make the cookies at home. Or if, even if we had seen a book at a library or something that we would like, she would say, okay, why don't you write your own book? And we would write the book, we would like, bind it ourselves, we would draw the cover and everything.
Yeah.
My sister was really into like acting, and so she would write plays and force all of us to act in them. We would make our own costumes, make our own sets. So I think it was just the ethos of whatever you want to do, or whatever you want, and you have to make it yourself. Um,
Hmm.
so I think my
Yeah.
just came to be wired that way. That if I see anything that I like, I my brain always works in a way of like, how can I make it myself? And
Yeah.
that's why when I saw those books, I was like, I want to make one of those. Sorry.
Yeah.
Even when I see a
Tell me a little bit about also your great uncle, I think, who was a botanist.
yeah.
Do you remember much about that at all? What he did, etc.?
So he was my mom's uncle, and
Mm.
I do remember him. He passed away when I was quite young. I mean, I must have been 8 or 9. I remember him very clearly. Um, Not specifically as a botanist. I just remember him as an uncle. But I know that he conducted the first survey of the flora of Karnataka in the 70s. And he had used my mom's family's farmhouse as his base in Hassan district. And
Uh-huh.
so she would tell me like, very romanticized stories about how she remembers as a child these scientists from the Smithsonian coming to collaborate with him, and how all of the people who worked on the farm had participated in collecting specimens and things like that.
Yeah.
So it all sounded very exciting to me. Um,
Yeah.
so I think even if I didn't like learn anything in terms of botany from him, I think I picked up on that sense of adventure, and that's what I
Hmm.
created with plants.
Yeah, yeah. And like you're a National Geographic storytelling fellow and young explorer, etc. Tell us a little bit about what did those recognitions bring you as a storyteller, as a writer? What kind of worlds do these fellowships open up for you? I mean, we talked a little bit about Ink Fellowship opening
Yeah.
up, but National Geographic is very much aligned to what you're doing, etc. What is a National Geographic Storytelling Fellow? What do you go through for that?
So when I did work on my first book, Hidden Kingdom: Fantastical Plants of the Western Ghats, I at that point had, as you said, no training in botany or art, and I had nothing relating to this field on my CV. I mean, I had just graduated from college and I had one job at Inc. That was it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so when I was recommended, I mean, by Raghava and also
Mhm.
by another Inc. fellow, Kriti Karanth, to
Kritika.
apply for a Natio Young Explorers grant. So it's basically an entry-level grant where they give you a small amount of money, but enough to work on a small project where you can basically prove yourself.
Mhm.
And while I didn't have um, you know, anything on my CV to speak for me,
Yeah.
I managed to actually draw out some of the spreads and submitted that along with my application. And on the strength of that, I got the grant. And
Hmm.
with that, I managed to publish that first book, and that first book led me to my second book, where I collaborated with
Hmm.
scientists ecologists from the Nature Conservation Foundation, and
Mm,
things snowballed from there. So on the one hand, that gave me my first break, and also Nachi is just a wonderful partner to work with because
yeah.
once they believe in you, they continue to believe in you. And then I subsequently got the Nachi Storytelling Fellowship about
Mhm,
4 years ago, and
mhm.
I currently have a joint grant with them where there's uh, three other Nachio fellows and I are working together on another project. So, once
Uh-huh.
you enter that family, it's like ink. You continue with
Yeah.
that.
And tell me a little bit about in the second book that you wrote. I mean, there are carnivorous plants out there, there are poisonous plants out there, but you always bring out sort of the beauty in them. Tell me a little bit about, are there some unusual plants that you saw there that you learned yourself? When you say carnivorous plants, can they eat people? Or, like just what are the things that you saw that were really like unusual or magical or otherworldly?
The whole idea behind that book was to feature all of those unusual and otherworldly plants. They're
Right.
all native to the Western Ghats, and I think they're the kind of plants that most people wouldn't imagine that we have, right next door to us. In fact, some of those plants, a lot of those plants, you can find on the outskirts of Bangalore, for example. So I just wanted to convey to people how exciting that our immediate landscape is. You don't have to go very
Yeah.
far. Think of only the Amazon or something to find these really fantastical plants. Um, and so some specific examples. So you mentioned the carnivorous plants.
Yeah.
So carnivores, they don't eat people. They eat
I know,
insects.
I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. It's sort of like,
They're
yeah.
actually fairly small, so you'd have to have some very
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but essentially, they grow in, the lateritic plateaus that you find in Karnataka and Goa and Maharashtra, and which receives very heavy rainfall, and that makes the soil, it leaches away a lot of the nutrients from the soil. And so the conventional way that a plant is able to get nutrients is through its roots. It'll suck
Right.
nutrients from the soil. But where they don't have access to that, they have to supplement their diet in some way. So in this case, they resort to trapping little insects that pass by, and most of them
Hmm.
have some sort of like sticky tentacles, which are
Yeah.
very beautiful because they look very like jewel-like, with a lot of dew
Yeah.
on, like not dew actually, it's more like a sticky substance that ensnares
Yeah.
the and then it digests them
Yeah.
within, and it's able to extract the nutrition from that. Um,
Hmm.
and these you would actually find just outside Bangalore. So the
Yeah.
reason that I wanted to feature plants like this was that, when we learn about carnivorous plants in school, the most obvious examples that were given are just like Venus flytrap, which is not native to India. And
Mhm.
by omission, it implies that we don't have carnivorous plants in India, just by omission. We imagine that,
Yeah.
oh, we get these in North America or the Americas in general, and that we don't have such plants here. And little did
Yeah.
I know that we have it, just an hour from where I live.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's we chose plants
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And also, I mean, you didn't start as a botanist, but as now you know so much more about plants. So as you do this, do you read more about plants? I mean, obviously, from the time you started to now, you probably know so much more about plants than before.
It's definitely been a very ad hoc education
Yeah.
in botanical education.
Yeah.
When you learn on the job, I think you retain that information quite well. So a botanist because I don't have the specialized knowledge, but I end up learning a lot along the way.
Yeah.
So like some funny stories are, so
Yeah.
I was working on these two simultaneously. One was Hidden Kingdom, and the other was Pillars of Life, which is specifically on based on trees. And the two
Mm.
ecologists that I was working with are specialized in trees, and their knowledge is so deep, and that they're really at a very high level in those terms.
Mhm.
But my cousin who I worked with on Hidden Kingdom has a good knowledge of herbs and shrubs and those kinds of things. So we had shortlisted one of the plants for Hidden Kingdom was another, it's called magenta ghost orchid. And while I had was with Divya and we were searching for trees to sketch for pillars of life. And we stopped by the side of the road to drink water. And we just like, opened the car door. And just by the side of the road, there was this extremely rare magenta ghost orchid. And the irony was that I identified it and Divya was like, what's this? I've never seen this before. So it was,
Yeah. Practical
yeah,
knowledge.
it was a coincidence. Yeah, it was sheer coincidence because it's a very rare plant. But I
Uh-huh.
couldn't believe that my luck at just chancing upon it like that and also
Yeah.
happening to know what it was called.
Right.
But yeah, those are
Right.
really memorable stories.
Yeah. And you're also known for going on these crazy treks and all that stuff because I think to find these plants, sometimes you have to go. So tell me a little bit about what are the kind of treks that you go on? Is there anyone that you can think of that you felt a little nervous about or the toughest one you did? Tell me about the treks you have to go on to do this.
So some of them are, more about your physical ability, where you're trekking for hours or altitude sickness and that kind of thing. But I think for me, one that pushed me quite a bit was when we went to Agumbe. Um,
Mm.
we wanted to see the Myristica swamps there, which are basically wild nutmeg swamps. And we stayed at a research station there, and Agumbe has extremely high rainfall. I think it's the second highest in the country after Cherrapunji, and Cherrapunji is
Cherrapunji,
second highest in
wow.
the world, actually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very,
Huh.
very high rainfall. And it's
Uh-huh.
also kind of known for snakes. Um,
Mm.
so there were snakes everywhere, like just even in the not necessarily venomous snakes, but I mean there were venomous snakes around us, just that we didn't see them. There were like even the area that we were eating, there was just like a snake hanging from the rafters, and you just had to ignore it or whatever. And
Yeah.
we waded through like waist high water to get to the swamps through non-stop rain.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm quite scared of snakes. So I
Yeah.
was trying to like cover up as much as possible. Of course, there were leeches, but I don't mind leeches as much. The snakes were what I was afraid of. But Siddharth, my cousin, he was in chappals, and I was like, "Don't you think there must be snakes in this water that we're walking through?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah, but they'll feel us and they'll move away." So I
Uh.
was like, "Okay, you're sure." And then he said, "No, don't worry. You're more likely to die from a car accident in the city. It'll be fine." And like he just shrugged it off.
The chance of the car accident is much higher than a snake accident, I think, probably.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. But it's like, I mean, it is kind of physically demanding to go to these places. Don't you sometimes you just go take photographs and give me and I'll paint it? And do you feel you need to go see it? I mean, tell me a little bit about this exploration that artists do to get it right. Is it that you want to feel the environment it's in? What makes you go on these expeditions? Or treks. And well, I don't want to say expedition, it's not like, Annapurna or something, but these are all tough hikes and treks.
Yeah, so in traditional botanical art, it's required that you see the specimen in Android so that you can represent it accurately. Because in a photo, there may be textures that you can't notice, or
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah, and you're supposed. I think it's only sort of considered like a scientific piece if if you've observed all of the details yourself. But this is what I'm when I'm speaking of the very scientific form of botanical art where you have against a white background with all of the different parts of the plant and stuff. So I don't do that. So I do a more
Right.
like more art
Artistic
approach
rendition.
to it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I don't have to see everything myself, and I often do paint things that I haven't necessarily seen firsthand because my approach is more about storytelling. And I
Mm,
also, since I collaborate with ecologists, I will, if I haven't managed to see the plant myself, I will just ask them for their help in um, ensuring
mm,
that it's true to life. Um,
mm,
but I do try to, as far as possible, like, at least 90%, I try to see the plant myself. Um,
mhm.
why do I do that? First of all,
No, I
it's
mean,
fun.
tell me your experience of like, is it that, like for me, like when people ask me about religion or something, I just said to me, like going on a hike is very religious, like it's
When
very,
you say that, I
I mean, in
completely
a sense,
agree.
you really are in nature and it is uncomfortable at times. And there are times I kind of go, what am I doing here? Like I should be at home in some warm room.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it's so spiritual in a lot of ways when you're out there. So,
yeah.
what do you feel when you're out there in terms of, I mean, you really, I mean, you go much more remote places, perhaps. I mean, I go on regular hikes in a neighborhood, but when you go to places, because I remember when I was in IIT Bombay, like somebody said, oh, come on a hike. And I just went thinking it's like I'm going to a park. And you're like bushwhacking actually at places,
Mhm.
there's no
Mm.
path. So I'm like, where the heck did I come? But
Yeah.
of course, I went back the next weekend and the next weekend. But
Yeah.
how are these hikes I mean, fairly easy to get to, or sometimes do you have to make your way, or what's your experience of going on these things?
I actually had a very similar thought to what you just mentioned when I went on a hike recently. And, when you're climbing uphill sometimes and it's so tiring that you have to zone out everything else. You can only think about what you're doing right then and there. And something about that is so meditative. It made me feel like
Yeah.
going on pilgrimage or something. The thought of when you're chanting or you have to zone
Yeah.
out everything else because what you're doing requires so much energy and focus. Um,
Hmm.
that I felt like I was going on pilgrimage weirdly. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so when you see these like temples at the top of a mountain and that you need to walk up to, I think
Yeah.
that's the idea behind it. That's what I felt.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't always enjoy it at the time. Sometimes I do because the further the more remote you go, the more untouched and beautiful it is, the scenery. And so like uh, when you get the privilege to see some of those areas, which I wouldn't have if I wasn't collaborating with these people who go there on the regular for their research. And so when I get it feels like such an immense privilege to be in those places, like once in a lifetime opportunities for me.
Uh-huh.
So even though there are definitely drawbacks, like no toilets, that kind of
I know.
so you have to
Yeah.
like sort of weigh the pros against those cons. And I think for me, I don't always enjoy it in the moment, but in
Yes.
retrospect, it's amazing.
I know memories are always great in retrospect, and at that
Yeah.
moment, it's like, oh my God, it's like, do I have to cook in this? Do I have to eat in this,
Yeah. But then
etc.
within that, there are moments of like ecstasy, where I can't believe
Yeah,
this is happening to me.
yeah, yeah, really, really. And how is it going when you're a new mother now and you have a baby boy? Are you planning to take him on your hikes, or
I
do you
hope
do
so, yeah.
how has it been for you? Uh, I mean, it's not just that that how is mixing the career and the baby and the projects, and it's a whole new world, right? So how has it been for you?
He's 8 months old now, so I haven't
Yeah.
travel for work just yet. At least I whatever projects that I'm working on, I've finished all of the field work before I got pregnant. So I kind of knew that I was getting into this, and so I finished all the field work for these projects beforehand, and now I'm just working on all of the painting. And
Hmm.
so I had pre-planned that. But going forward, I hope that, after he's a year old, I'll be able to get back to it. And in terms of taking him along, yeah, once
Yeah.
he's a little bit older, right now he can't even walk.
I
But
know. This is the easy time to take them. They won't run around anywhere.
I can just about climb uphill without him on my back. I mean, now that
Yeah.
I think about it, my dad would have us on his shoulders and just walk uphill when we went trekking when we were kids, and we didn't think anything of it. But
Yeah.
now I have a whole new appreciation for it.
I always say that you have children only to appreciate your parents.
Yeah,
And all the work you do, Nirupa, is a very alone work, right? Your art is very alone. And even the hikes that you go on, it's with a small group of people, with a few
yeah.
ecologists, etc. Um, Tell me a little bit about your process of how you work, how you draw. Do you sketch first, or just tell me about your process of how you paint.
So specifically when I'm drawing trees, it's very important to see them in the wild because if you've ever tried taking a photo of a tree, it's quite tough, especially if
Right.
it is like,
Yeah.
about 140 feet tall and it's in dense jungle. You can't fit it in a single camera frame, and there's so much around it that even if you manage to, you can't isolate that tree. So
Hmm.
I developed this process of drawing trees when I was working on Pillars of Life because Divya and Sridhar, who are the ecologists who I worked with on that book, they run a rainforest restoration program in the Western Ghats, and they focus on growing native trees. They had wanted to visually document those trees, but they
Mm.
couldn't do it with photography because of the reasons I mentioned. So when they learned that I was painting plants for Hidden Kingdom, they asked me if I would give painting a shot. And
Mm.
so that's how we came to work together on that book. Um, so all of the trees that were featured in that book, which were about 30 species, we had to sketch them on site. I didn't paint them there because it's,
Yeah.
the most
Yeah.
comfortable environments to be
Yeah.
painting.
Yeah.
And
Right.
also painting is a long and tedious process for me. So
Yeah.
I sketched it mainly to be able to discern the shape, which is very difficult to discern from a photograph. And then I brought those all of those
Do you have
sketches.
like an easel to do, or do you do it in a sketchbook? How do you do it?
It was very jugaad because there are certain requirements that I had in order to be able to see the tree. So because these trees are so tall, and you want to get the right vantage point, right? You want to be sort of seeing them head
Yeah.
on. So it meant that I had to the point from which I was sketching I had to select it in such a way that I would be able to see the tree the way I wanted to. And that position wasn't always the most comfortable. So sometimes it was that we had to, study the buttress of the tree up close, and then we would climb up a hill opposite that tree in order to see its crown rising above the canopy. At
Mm.
other times, we could see a massive tree across the road, and the best viewpoint for it was from the road divider on a those sort of
Hairpin.
highways that
Yeah.
go through the Ghats.
Yeah.
And so I would like sit on that road divider literally. And since it's quite uncomfortable
Yeah.
the rear end,
Yeah.
we had to put a little like plastic stool on that divider. And then if it starts to rain, then someone has to sit behind you on the
An
same kind
umbrella.
of holding an umbrella over your sketch pad. So
Yeah.
at other times we just had these passers-by who were driving through the jungle would suddenly see this girl on a red plastic chair in the middle of the jungle sketching. Like, what's going on? um
Hopefully nobody was racing on those roads.
oh my God, they definitely were, but they
Yeah.
slowed down when they saw us, at least, because they were as curious as we were.
Yeah. 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 And you also did the book cover for Amitabh Ghosh,
Yeah.
like it's totally different than uh, working with an ecologist or a scientist or whatever. How was it to work with an author and to translate their the image that they have or their imagination of the mood, etc., to translate into a cover? So do you work more with the publisher or do you work with the artist or you have to read the book first? Like how is that process?
It started out with Gun Island, which at that time was his latest novel. I think he's just written
Yeah.
another one. But until this, that was his latest. So because Amitav Ghosh is such a big name author, there was a lot of secrecy around the books. I didn't get to read the whole manuscript, but I was given an excerpt to read. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think Gunjan Elawat, who is he was the jacket designer. So he came up with the concept, and then I was the illustrator for the cover. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he knew that King Cobra features as a very strong motif in the book. And I think that's why he thought to approach me because I was doing this kind of ecological related
Mm-hmm.
illustration. And
Mm-hmm.
so he said that the book is set in the Sundarbans, and so he wanted this King Cobra entwined around the lettering. So he had
Mm-hmm.
laid out the title of the book and the author name big, taking up the entire cover page. And the brief that he gave me was that he wanted a king cobra very prominently displayed and intertwined through the letters. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I read the excerpt that I was given and I realized that it was set in the Sundarbans, I thought that being a botanical artist, I wanted to include some plants as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that plants really give you a sense of place, right? It imbues,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
um, yeah, you get a sense of the context. And
Context.
since
Mm-hmm.
Naveen Ghosh is known to be an environmental author, and
Right.
yeah, I think plants and environment in general feature very strongly in his books. I decided
Mm-hmm.
to include some of the local plants that you would find in the Sundarbans. So you have them also along with the snake intertwined around the letters. So
Mm-hmm.
that was Gun Island. And then they decided to rejacket four of his older novels in the same style.
Mm-hmm.
Since those were older novels, I was able to read them. But
Yeah.
Gunjan had, we were following a similar template in the sense that we had the text very big and then these specific kind of ecological elements that we wanted to feature
Mm-hmm.
alongside. So in one case, it was birds. Um, in another case, it was a Hilsa fish for Calcutta chromosome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, the thing is, when you think about it, um I feel it's a very unusual career, right? Uh, but it's a career. I
Yeah.
mean, people hire you to do this, science hire. So, one of the things a lot of the parents worry about is, oh, unless they study something concrete and, there's a job, what will we do with painting or what will they do with something? But sometimes, I mean, the reason your story is great is that uh, it's an unusual profession, actually, not just a hobby or artistry. It's actually a profession. So I think it's a great way for parents, actually, more than anybody else, to know it's okay if the child follows what they want. There will be a career there. uh,
Yeah.
Perhaps. So, one of the things, there is a question here of many women are drawn to creative paths but hesitate to pursue them seriously. What gave you the courage to choose botanical art as a vocation, and what doubts did you have when you worked through it?
I think I'll tell you what gave me the courage to do it was, as I said, being at Inc. And
Mhm.
seeing all of these other people pursuing their passions. I felt that my passion was so strong that if I didn't pursue it, I would really regret it. And it
Mhm.
was the
Yeah,
fear of that regret actually that
yeah,
me
yeah,
to
yeah,
so
right.
I think you need to gauge like how strong your passion is. If you're doing it because you think it's going to be fun,
Mhm.
that's not the right motivation, I feel. Like you have
Right.
to realize that when you are making your own career path, the buck stops at you, you know. You have
Correct. Correct.
to,
Yeah.
you have to do whatever it takes to figure out how to see it through. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so with that in mind, yeah, you have to weigh up whether your that passion can see you through the
Yeah.
process. So that is one thing I would say. The other thing in a very practical sense that there are two things I would say. One is that when we think about following your passion and everything, people tell you to sort of jump in, go for it, just jump into the deep end. You don't always have
Correct.
to do that. I think like I took up a job as a graphic designer when I first started as a botanical artist because I saw that as most stable. And
Mm-hmm.
why I did that during the week. And on the weekends, I would work on my botanical art. And then when I
Mm-hmm.
felt that botanical art could sustain me, I
Mm.
stopped doing the graphic design. So you
Ah,
don't jump, you can put one leg here, one leg there, and then,
yeah.
just cross over when you're ready. Um,
Ready. Yeah.
so
Or
it's
when the market is ready for
or when the
you.
market is exactly, yeah. That is the
Yeah.
second. The third thing I would say is when you're doing some, providing a service for something for a need that doesn't exist at them or people don't realize exists, then
Mm.
helps to be able to provide an end-to-end service. So, for
Mm.
instance, the fact that I knew graphic design meant that I could say, even say with the Amitav Ghosh covers, I could not only draw um, the
Mm.
cover, but I could also, edit it and put it into the format it for the book
Yeah.
cover Gunjan wanted me to. So I can provide that end-to-end service, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
when you can completely take things off people's hands and say, don't worry about it, I'll handle it. Um,
Right.
that
Yeah.
stands you in good stead, and you can be much more flexible and pivot more easily.
Correct. Correct. And also, I think, when you do something of this sort, um, there's almost, I mean, when you're doing that, it's not like somebody is guaranteeing you something. Sometimes you just follow the instinct. I say this a lot to whether anything you talk about, whether it's technology or internet or art or doesn't matter what it is, you have to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
Like it's sort of if there were 100,000 botanical artists, then you have to be practical and see how much need there is. But I think it's okay to go after something without knowing a guaranteed result because one thing is no technology, nothing, no innovation has worked where they haven't tried it before for a very long time before
yeah,
it's right or not. It's
right.
sort of, you have to be a little ahead of the curve to make that popular
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing. So
yeah,
that's what's really great to see that you took that chance and the other thing I also feel is that we are all privileged.
yeah,
We are privileged to be able to try something new, whether it pays any money or not or whatever.
yeah,
But how many people who have the privilege actually use it,
for sure.
right?
That's true.
So I think there is a lot of ways to, you know, cut at it. But I just wanted to point out that the fact that you did it not with an outcome in hand,
Yeah,
in mind,
yeah,
but I just want to do this. And when you do a fantastic job at it, it'll come, like for a scientist, it's so great to have a young person who has the energy to go on all these treks, sit in the middle of the road and sketch and do such a good job. For them also, it's like, oh my God, I can't find someone like that.
yeah,
So,
yeah. You have to
yeah,
show them that it's worth it, all of the extra effort, that it's worth it. And of course, they believed in it. They had the idea before I did.
right, yeah. No, and also I think it's sort of for you also, whether it's Alok or somebody,
Yeah,
sometimes we need someone outside to see
yeah,
that in us,
yeah,
because you say, oh, this is just my hobby, these are my sketches, who'll care about it?
yeah,
But you don't know how good you are unless you
yeah,
see it with somebody else's eyes sometimes,
yeah, yeah,
seeing what we do for granted. Like I have so many people who are like, they just talk in some heavy duty code language. And I'm like, what is that? She said, oh, like everybody knows this. I said, no, everybody doesn't, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's very dense topic, it's
Yeah,
easy
yeah,
for
yeah.
you, but not for others. So,
Sometimes the things
um,
that you're good at, you just take for granted, right? You
right, yeah, yeah, because you're like, oh, I'm just sketching, but is it possible at all? I should have asked you ahead of time. Is any of your book, can you like show somebody um, one of your pieces of art? It is
Okay, so the books are
so nice.
downstairs. I don't this I'm
Okay,
sitting in this, but I've left it down in the living room. Uh,
okay.
but I'll just show you some
And
art.
I'm going to take one or two questions that are here and then we'll wrap up. And, I just wanted everybody to see what she does because it's so unusual that I think you'll get a sense of what it is when you see it.
Can,
Yeah.
can you see this?
Oh,
Like a little bit of
yes. My
the
God. It
um
almost looks like a photograph.
so it is I would say it's realistic, not photorealistic. If you see it up close, you can definitely tell it's a
Yeah.
painting. Um
Right. Right.
and this is from Hidden
Hmm.
Kingdom. It
Yeah.
depicts a strangler fig.
Yeah.
So it's the same genus as peepal trees, bodhi trees, um,
Yeah.
yeah, and banyan
Yeah.
trees. They all belong to the ficus genus.
Uh,
I mean, it's a common sight in the cities to see those trees growing from a crack in the wall or uh,
mhm,
you know,
mhm,
just on the sidewalk or whatever it is. And but this is the mechanism that those trees exhibit, which is basically that they because they grow in rainforests, which are extremely dense, for a small sapling to grow from the ground up towards the sun would take a really long time. So these trees actually kind of cut in line and get ahead. Their
mhm,
seeds are dispersed usually by birds, and they'll drop them on the branches of an existing tree. So they'll
oh,
germinate from that tree, and they'll send the shoots up to the sky, so that gives
yeah.
them up, and then their roots will grow down to the ground, and in the process they sort of strangle the host tree kind of sometimes to death.
Mm,
So that's
right.
what
Yeah.
why it's called a strangler fig. And you can see that in this painting that there's a host tree beneath that, and then and in the surroundings are meant to depict how
Mhm.
dense that jungle is and why this strangler fig would adopt this strategy.
Right. Yeah. When we talk about like why we say why is the world violent or whatever, I mean, when you go to nature, it is violent,
Yeah,
be it, plants eating insects or plants, whatever, or animals killing each other. I mean,
yeah,
violence is a part of life, I mean,
yeah,
to survive. And I think there are so many stories about it. I mean, there's so many interpretations about it, etc. Let me ask the other question. As women, we are encouraged to choose safe careers. How did you balance financial realities with deeply artistic and recent passion? Not recent, I mean, at that time, when you
yeah.
started, it was recent. Yeah.
So that's what I was saying. I kept my graphic design job, which gave me a steady income. And then I did this on the side on the weekends. And
Yeah.
then at the point where I felt that I was going to get enough work through this, then I could stop doing that. And whenever I needed to, I could always, go back to that in a freelance capacity. Um,
Hmm.
so that is one strategy. And I think, I mean, even if you have so at that time I had a 9 to 5 job actually during the,
Hmm.
and I was young enough at that point that I didn't have, kids or a
Yeah.
family commitment. So all I needed was
Yeah.
enough for myself. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think I was young enough that I got that head start, and then now that I'm more comfortable, I can, I'm, I can be a bit more experimental with my projects and all of that.
Right, right. And also it's that I think the point is valid that don't let go of one thing. I mean,
Yeah,
unless you have a cushion, you worked for a while, you saved, and then you're joining from one transition to the other, then it's good to take time
yeah,
off and think
yeah.
about it. But if you want to keep working, you don't want to take a break, then I think it's a good idea to, whatever you're good at, just keep doing till the new thing kicks off,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you can trade.
And then you have
Um,
proof concept that it's going to work.
yeah. Um, Botanical art is often seen as a gentle and decorative. Did you ever struggle to be taken seriously as a professional artist? And how did you build this credibility that you have now?
That's a good question. I think you'll always struggle with it because I mean, people. Of course, there is a decorative element to it. People, a lot of people want prints or commissions or whatever for their homes. Um, and to them, it might not be. They may not care too much about the actual species. It might be more for the um, ornamental value, which is fine. Obviously, to decorate your home is important to make you feel good and all of that. But I think that's not my focus, at least not at the moment.
Mm, yeah,
I the thing that really interests me is more science communication, and um, so I think rather than focusing on like art for the home, which is very lucrative. So, you could do that on the
yeah,
side if you wanted, if you needed the cash flow, you could do that on the side, and then also pursue your other passions, which may not be as profitable. Um,
right.
but since I got a lot of these grants for my work, I
Hmm.
was able to just focus on the science communication, which is what I'm really interested in. Um,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think also just um, working with ecologists for whom this was also really important. They had the same priority. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that has helped me keep that focus. And
Oh.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think also I hope that's given me that credibility with most
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, and also a lot of the awards, the exposures you had, etc. I mean, I mean, across the globe, probably it's a lot more prevalent than in India.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's and beyond exhibitions, what impact you hope your work can have on women and future of creators, youth, etc. What would you like to see happen there through your work?
So obviously, the sort of primary aim is for people to have more environmental awareness of their own surroundings, and more like empathy for their surroundings, more consideration of how like valuable it is,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that is sort of the primary focus. On a more like I suppose philosophical level, I just love beautiful things. I think plants are extremely beautiful, and they're
Yeah.
beautiful because they work. They're so functional. They have that the
Yeah.
ecosystems. The
Mm.
more healthy an ecosystem it is, the more beautiful it is to me. Um,
Right.
I think just seeing, I said that I had been going to the Western Ghats a lot as a child, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know much about the ecology. It was just the backdrop to my childhood, like I wasn't really paying attention to the trees, or I didn't know the
Yeah.
species or anything. Uh, and then later on, going back as an adult and working with like either Siddharth or Divya and Sridhar, and seeing their deep knowledge for that very same ecosystem, and how much
Mm-hmm.
more their love for it intensifies the more they get to know it. I think that's just a beautiful concept and it applies to anything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the more deeply you
Yeah.
know something, the more strong is your love for it, the stronger is your urge to protect and preserve it. And it just enriches your life, right? I think that's a beautiful approach to life in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's sort of if we can create some awe and excitement in the children
Yeah.
in wanting to try science, etc. Whatever we can make to appeal to that. So anyway, so let me ask you the last question. There are others, but I'll just pick one. Um, um, success, sorry, success looks different for every woman. How do you define success today compared to when you started?
I suppose when I started, I felt like I had something to prove, or I
Mhm.
want to be recognized for whatever I was doing. And not to say that those things are not important to me. They still are. Um,
Yeah.
but it is maybe success is having projects that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily I've seen that recognition can in a way be quite cheap. Um,
Hmm.
like in the media age, there's a lot of ways that you could get,
Correct.
talked
Attention.
about,
Yeah.
and you can get all the attention you want. So
Mm-hmm.
that in and of itself means nothing. It has to
Mm-hmm.
be the right kind of the right kind of
Yeah.
attention. And yeah, so it has to be deeper than just that.
Right. And also, I think, I mean, when you started, it was like, oh, I happen to be good at it. But
Hmm.
over the years, the insights you get, and not just that you've published two books and they've been received extremely well. So when you see somebody else's reaction to
Mm-mm.
your storytelling, it's sort
Yeah.
of, sometimes it is getting to, I got to talk about this in an event of 100,000 to, I want to make sure at least one person is influenced by it,
Yeah.
impacted by it, are very different kinds of things. And I think at different stages, you want different things
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that. So, so tell us, as we wrap up, Nirupa, what advice do you have for you're very young even now because you started so early, but in your, from your career, actually, I do want you to say a little bit about this whole, one of the questions that always comes up in hierarchy things is there's work, there is child, there is house, there is, like all these things to balance.
Yeah.
And what kind of summary do you have in terms of how you choose to, because Alok travels a lot for his work. You're out doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, how do you balance everything in your life?
The one thing I
Is
would
your family is there, or like what helps you to balance everything in your life?
The one thing that I would wish for any woman who has a strong career path is to have a supportive partner, uh,
Yeah,
because you need to be a team, and
yeah,
both of you need to be playing for the same side, and I think like Alok takes me seriously. He's not just kind of
yeah,
hating me and saying, okay, she can do this little hobby to keep herself busy. And
yeah.
he takes my ambitions as seriously as he takes his own. I
Mhm.
such a blessing, more than anything else.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's funny. Like when we were talking to Kritika, and even when I talk, I always say that the one decision that can make or break your life is who you choose to be with. If you choose
Sure.
not to be with anybody, that's also okay.
Yeah, yeah,
You know. But my dad would always say that finding the wrong person is worse than being single, so don't hurry
yeah.
about
You will
this.
get weighed down. You'll have a liability, attached to you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I would rather not have a partner than have a bad partner. But I
Yeah.
have a great partner.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean so yeah, you're, as I said, you're a mother. Your son's name is Bodhi, and how did you pick that name? I mean, did your career influence the name, or was it a mutual decision?
Mutual. It was
I mean,
mutual.
of course, it's a mutual decision,
Yeah,
but
yeah. But
influenced
he's
by,
named after the tree.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the
It was
Bodhi
it was
tree.
summer. It was the beginning of summer because he's born at the end of April. And the Bodhi trees have when they have that fresh flush, those little pinkish yellowish leaves that glisten in the sunlight. And I was
Uh-huh,
talking to Alok on the phone, and I was looking at a Bodhi tree out my window, and I mentioned just how that whole summer I was obsessed with how those leaves glistening in the sunlight. And I
uh-huh.
I said that to him, and he said, "Wouldn't Bodhi be such a beautiful name?"
And
And
it's a neutral name also. You could have named a
yeah,
girl Bodhi or a boy Bodhi. It would have
yeah,
been
we
just
were friends with
fine.
daughters. Yeah, so we didn't know the sex, so we were like, okay, either way we'll go with Bodhi.
Yeah, yeah. Like we were talking the other day about there are some like Kiran is another name that's
Yeah,
like man and I mean there are some names that can go either way,
yeah,
So Bodhi is one of those because it's the name of a tree,
yeah.
It's sort of it could go either way. So anyway, thank you so much for your time, Nirupa. It's really fascinating for me to see your own evolution and how I mean I mean I didn't even mention all the scholarships you have. There's so many awards that you've received now, so much recognition for your work, and two books and more coming. So leave us with what are your future, what do you want to try something, you've done cover art for books, you've done botanical precision art, and then botanical artistic art. What do you want to try?
I'm really excited to try something at a slightly larger scale, because my sister sent me when she lives in Paris, and she sent me these. They have a botanical garden there, and it's a public garden, but they have these public not art shows, they're for children. But they have these giant dinosaur sculptures one week, and they're like lit up in the night, and it's so exciting, and it's so interactive
Yeah.
for children, and for adults. Like, it's wonderful. So I want to try something at that scale which can really involve like
Mm.
communities. um
Yeah.
yeah, that would be my
Kind of
next.
like a public art
Yeah,
kind of a thing
yeah,
that people can interact with. Uh,
exactly. Yeah,
that'll be very interesting, actually.
yeah,
And it'll look different in the day than night.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that would be really great. Sorry, I just want to see there's one more. Master Cinderella. So there's a Divya. You were talking about Divya, but it's not the same Divya. Divya asking about what kind of illustrations or artwork. But okay, so yeah, I mean, she's just saying that love the work, the diversity because of family commitments. I can't travel to a lot of these places, but it's really great that you get to
You
travel
can
and
that yeah, no, sure. Traveling is very exciting, but there's you can also try to draw the plants in your city, or uh,
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's great. I think I think we went through most of the questions and you've given us a lot of your time. So thank you so much for your time and really for all the audience out there. Go check out her work and her books, etc. But I think the bottom line I want to leave everybody with is that when you have a passion and also when you're good at it. I mean, I have a passion to sing, but I don't think anybody, even I don't want to hear myself sing. So it's sort of, I think, having a passion, but also putting the time to be good at it
Yeah,
and taking the opportunities that are presented to you and make it 10 times more, is something that we can all inspire each other to do. So we just wanted to present to everybody a unique profession and unique journey because you've somebody who's not trained in it, did it and then continuing to do so. That's truly inspiring. So thanks a lot for your time, Nirupa.
thank you so much.